Yeah.
Hi, Pat Battle here with Living Web Farms, here for the next installment of our Resilience Daily series, which we're doing in collaboration with the Organic Growers School. And today we're going to talk about infrastructure. It's time to get your tomatoes trellised, your cucumbers trellised or caged, and there's a bunch of different ways to do it. We're going to look at a few ways over a few little videos over the next few days. Today I'm going to talk about using concrete reinforcing wire and the several ways that it can be very effective for solving that problem. You may see the little conical tomato cages in the box stores and at garden centers, and if you have little tiny patio tomatoes that are determinate, they'll work fine, but for any serious indeterminate tomato, they're a disaster. They're just going to fall over. They just don't have enough structure. This can handle an indeterminate tomato, but it can't handle an indeterminate tomato without being anchored. So I spared you the pain of watching my inefficient hammering. I've driven a piece of rebar into the ground. Rebar is used for reinforcing concrete, just like this cage is here. And I've driven it into the ground. I want to drive it in about a foot, and then I'm going to attach it. And I attach it with this tool that I have fallen in love with. It is so useful for the backyard gardener or for the farmer. This is a concrete reinforcing tool also. It's for tying the different concrete reinforcing materials together. So you take a tie, see there's a nice big roll of them here, and they're pretty cost effective. I bought that years ago, so I can't tell you. It takes a long time to go through them, but they're reasonable. And you take it and you attach it to the cage and to the rebar, and then you simply put the hook through both of the circles at the end, and then you just very efficiently, which I just didn't do, go ahead and twist it. And don't over twist it, and that could stand a few more turns. If you twist it too much, it just snaps off. And I would do that probably at least one more time at the bottom. But that's nicely attached, and this is not going over. I probably would put 2 in for a nice big tomato. And I kind of then take this and, as they say nowadays, hack it. This can be a great tomato cage just like it is. You can also have cucumbers planted, maybe 3 of them inside it, and they'll come up it. If you have trouble with cucumber beetles, you can literally put floating row cover over it and make a cucumber fortress. I've ever done that. Then you want to grow the cucumbers that are parthenocarpic, that don't need to be fertilized. So that's one cage. I have another cage here. I'm going to talk for a minute about how you actually put them together. Simply by cutting them, you end up with at least one side of, this one has 2 sides the way it was cut. I like to cut it, whoever cut this didn't cut it the way I would. I would cut it right at an edge, right here where there's a piece coming up, so that I didn't have 2 sides of points sticking out, because these points are not the safest things in the world, you know. And so a solution that we use for that is we bend them back in on themselves. And actually I realize now I wish I brought a piece of pipe. A piece of pipe makes the bending a lot easier. Just take a little piece of pipe over it. I'm going to set it down here while I get the bottom. And once again, I'm not going to bend all these now because we're going to take this right back apart after we do this demo. But you want to bend everyone in. And you still want to be thinking about it when you're harvesting. Maybe in and down is probably the best thing you could do. So since I did it like that, we'll put this like this. Okay? And then you would attach this also with the rebar. And now you have 2 towers, and so you can put 2 tomatoes in there. Or maybe 6 cucumbers. But if, like myself and a lot of people I know, you have access to abundant bamboo because it wants to take over the world, you can now come along, slide this in here, slide it in there, except for I would have started it lower down, but I'll just do the next one lower down. And now you could fit 1 tomato, 2 tomatoes, 3 tomatoes, 4 tomatoes or 5 tomatoes in this space. Or you could run strings down and do a whole row of cucumbers. So this is a very easy structure to put up. You don't need to buy nearly as much as a concrete reinforcing wire, which you can get at any of the building supply stores. You can also get, I want to stick this out here a little further. And obviously you'd have it lower down. First, we'll show you one here. And actually, once again, I like to come through and take one of these ties and put a tie on it so that it doesn't move around. And by the way, if the ties are not long enough, which they aren't, so maybe for this it might not be quite long enough, I simply take two ties, twist them together, and now I have a super tie. It'll do the same thing. So that's a very fast, easy way to get a trellis up for a bunch of things. One item this works really well for is tomatillos. Tomatillos really don't lend themselves to control very well, but they really flop, and they flop nicely over this kind of bamboo structure. They're a little bit harder if you try and put them in there. They just make too much floppy material. I'd probably have a tomato in every cage and tomatillos in between. You can also do this for beans. You can grow beans up around those. Plant beans along here, just run string down, and you'd have a trellis for beans, cucumbers, or tomatoes. This works for all of them. So that's it for this installment. Remember to follow us on Instagram at Living Web Farms.